Hello and welcome back to Bioclass Bites. In this video, we are going to talk about cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. These are the unit and lesson titles for this video playlist, and in this video, we are going to focus on cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. So what are the parts of a typical cell? Okay, so a typical cell has three major parts. The first one would be the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is a semi-permeable membrane that protects the boundaries of the cell, separating it from the world around it. Okay, so that's the first major part. Next, the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is everything found between the cell membrane, okay, and the nucleus. So everything inside the cell membrane but outside the nucleus is part of the cytoplasm, and that's one of the most active part of the cell where majority of the cellular processes are happening. Then the nucleus is usually the largest organelle in a eukaryotic cell, and this is where the genetic material of that cell is located and protected. So these three are the major parts of a typical cell. Now, this is a diagram of a typical animal cell. Okay, so you can see here it's being protected by its plasma membrane or cell membrane. It encloses the cell and separates it from its environment. So you also can find the nucleus, usually the largest organelle, and then which is protected by its own nuclear envelope. Okay, the nucleolus, a non-membranous structure involved in production of ribosomes, and chromatin. This is the material consisting of the DNA, the genetic material of the cell, and the proteins. Okay, so this is visible during cell division. Now, everything between the nucleus and the cell membrane is your cytoplasm. Okay, so you can find the following organelles there. So right after the nucleus, you can see it surrounded by the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so this is where protein synthesis take place, okay, and other synthetic metabolic processes. So the ones that are dotted with ribosomes, okay, ribosomes, small brown dots here. These are complex sites of protein synthesis. So that's the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Then you also have a smooth endoplasmic reticulum that is not dotted with ribosomes. Then you can also find the Golgi apparatus. This is an organelle for active synthesis, sorting, and packaging of materials. And then, of course, we cannot forget about it, the mitochondrion. Okay, so the mitochondrion is the site of cellular respiration. Okay, so where food is broken down into ATP, okay, so that the cells can use it as its form of energy. So other organelles, you have the peroxisome, okay, an organelle for specialized metabolic processes. Then you have your microvilli for the projection. Some animal cells have this. Lysosome, a digestive organelle for where macromolecules are hydrolyzed. Then some animal cells have a flagellum for locomotion. Now, this is a diagram of a typical plant cell, okay? So it also has the majority of the organelles, okay, that we've seen here. But I hope you recognize here the central vacuole. This one is a very prominent organelle in plant cells for storage, okay? Sometimes water, sometimes food, for storage purposes. And then, of course, chloroplasts, okay? Chloroplasts here. These are organelles that are in charge with photosynthesis. Okay, so this is where photosynthesis occurs. And then then the rest of the organelles are the same. No, even mitochondrion, we can find that in plant cells. Okay, for energy production or breaking down of food to harvest energy. But then another feature in plant cells that are not found in animal cells would be the presence of, aside from the cell membrane, another cell wall. Okay, so cell membrane, the thin layer here, but then the thicker cell wall. Okay, it's an outer layer that maintains the shape of the plant cell, and it's usually made up of cellulose. Now, again, also to clarify, what are the differences between plants and animal cells? So, in terms of presence or absence of cell wall, presence or absence of chloroplast, size of vacuole, and number of mitochondria. So, in plant cells, they have cell wall. Animal cells do not have cell wall. Um, Plant cells have chloroplast. Some animal cells, okay, could also have chloroplast. Plant cells have bigger vacuole for storage, water and food. Animal cells have smaller vacuole, and plant cells have less mitochondria, and animal cells have more mitochondria. So these are the descriptions of the three major parts, and we will go through them one by one. So the first one would be the cell membrane. So we define the cell membrane as that layer that envelops the cell and separates it from its environment. So both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells have cell membrane. And aside from that, the cell membrane also regulates what moves in and out of the cell, making it a selectively permeable membrane. So it means that it selects, it chooses what could be let in. When we say permeable, materials can go in and out. So it chooses what to let in and out of the cell membrane, and it maintains the electric potential of the cell. So the cell membrane is also known as the following terms: plasma membrane or cytoplasmic membrane. So they all refer to the same thing. So this is the most important task. It separates the interior of all cells from the outside environment. So it creates a different system, separated or a cell that is separated from the rest of the environment or from the rest of the body. So the cell membrane, like what I've mentioned, is selectively permeable. It chooses which materials can move in. It controls the movements of the materials in and out of the cell. Okay, so not all materials can go in, not all elements or not all atoms or not all molecules can go in, and not everything can leave the cell. Okay, so that's how the cell membrane maintains the functions of the cell within. So the basic function of the cell membrane is to protect the cell from its surrounding by separating it from the environment and by choosing what to let in and out of the cell. To learn more about cell membrane, I recommend that you watch this video from Amoeba Sisters entitled Inside the Cell Membrane. I'll provide the link in the description below. This one is another interesting video about cell membrane and entitled Cell Membranes Are Way More Complicated Than You Think. This one is from TED-Ed, again, linked in the description below. I recommend that you also watch this video entitled The Plasma Membrane in the Fluid Mosaic Model. It will explain further the function of the cell membrane. So this is the fluid mosaic model of the cell membrane, or also known as the phospholipid bilayer. This is actually a diagram or a model devised that help us to visualize how the cell membrane could look like. So as you can see, it has two layers of phospholipids. So the first one that's facing away from the cell or the extracellular matrix, and the second layer below at the bottom that's facing inwards or in the intracellular matrix. Now dotted along the phospholipids uh, are your proteins, globular proteins that acts as gates in which larger or bulk molecules could enter or leave the cell membrane. So the polar heads, the polar heads are facing towards the aqueous environment or towards the water because they are hydrophilic. While the tails, the yellow ones here at the bottom, yan, here, are facing away from the water because they are hydrophobic. They do not want water. So hydrophilic polar heads facing towards aqueous or watery environments, hydrophilic. Then the hydrophobic tails are facing away from the water. So this is another example of the fluid mosaic model. So as you can see, this one is actually a complete envelope, a complete structure that encircles the cell. So as you can see here, no, so you have two layers. So this is the first layer that faces the extracellular matrix or outside of the cell. Okay. And you have another layer here at the bottom which faces inwards or the intracellular matrix towards the inside of the cell. So the polar heads here are hydrophilic because they like water. They are facing towards the water. Then here another part facing towards the water. Then in between them are the tails of their hydrophilic hydrophobic tails facing away from the water. Then scattered all throughout the phospholipid bilayer are your proteins, which acts as channels or gates that allows bulk materials to pass through. I recommend that you visit this website, biologyforkids.com. They try to explain cell membranes, incorporating some lessons about the cell theory. So I will provide the link in the description below. This one is from NCBI. Still more information about the cell membrane. Again, the links in the description below. The next cell structure would be the cytoplasm. This takes up most of the cell's volume. It is the fluid that fills the cell. Scientists used to call that fluid protoplasm. Now we call it the cytosol. So aside from the cytosol, the cell organelles are also found in the cytoplasm. They are actually suspended in the cytosol. Microfilaments and microtubules set up a skeleton or a scaffold on which the organelles are suspended. The cytoplasm has many different molecules such as enzymes, fatty acids, sugars, and amino acids. All of these are important to keep the cell working. Waste products are also removed from the cell. They are taken in by vacuoles and then sent out of the cell. I recommend that you also watch this video about cytoplasm. I will provide the link in the description below. So let's look into the two structures of the cytoplasm. The first one is the cytosol, and followed by the organelles. So the cytosol is the fluid portion of the cell found within the cell membrane and outside the nucleus. So all of this is the cytosol. Okay, it makes up 70% of the cell volume. It's mostly made up of water, salts, and inorganic molecules. Now, floating or suspended within the cytosol are your organelles. These are membrane-bound compartments, and each of them has a specific function. So the cytoplasm is made up of the fluid cytosol found within the cell membrane and outside the nucleus. So all of this. And then floating or suspended along it are your organelles. So I recommend that you check out the following websites. This is from biologyforkids.com. Still more about cytoplasm. And this is from Khan Academy. This is actually a lesson about cytoplasm. So I'll provide the links in the description below. The last cell structure that we will discuss would be the nucleus. This is usually the biggest organelle of the cell. It contains the DNA, the hereditary material or the genes of the cell, RNA, and both of those molecules are important in protein synthesis, and we will discuss more about that in the second quarter. So the DNA and the RNA are both contain information necessary to build various proteins such as enzymes and other substances. The nucleus, also referred to as the control center, is a membrane-enclosed organelle. So it is an organelle, it has a specific function for the cell, and it has its own membrane. And they're only found in eukaryotic cells. If you still remember our previous video, we've discussed the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And one defining feature of eukaryotic cells is the presence of a true nucleus. So they have their own nucleus. So the function of the nucleus is to maintain the integrity and protect the genes and to control the activities of the cell by regulating gene expression. Again, we will learn more about this in the second quarter. So like what I've mentioned, the nucleus is usually the largest organelle, and it is mostly darkly stained and is dense and roughly spherical in shape. So this is the oldest known depiction of cells and their nuclei by Anton von Leeuwenhoek. But if you look at it closely, this could possibly resemble red blood cells with their with their structure. However, please note that red blood cells are actually enucleated cells. They do not have a nucleus. So maybe this was their first illustration by Leeuwenhoek. We see here in detail the different parts of the nucleus. So you see the nucleus is that organelle of the cell that houses the genetic material of the cell. Um, then within the it's actually protected by a nuclear envelope, okay? A nuclear envelope um, and then this is a close-up of the nuclear envelope. You can actually see that it has nuclear pores, okay, openings, okay, that allows the movement of materials, specifically RNA, in and out of the cell. So nuclear pore, you can see that opening, okay, and then it also has its own chromatin inside and nucleolus, okay. Then chromatin, okay, so these are segments of a chromosome, okay, and these are very prominent they appear more prominent during cell division. This one is an electron micrograph of a cell nucleus. So this is the cell nucleus, showing you the darkly stained nucleolus. So it has its own nuclear envelope. Okay, it's a double membrane that encloses the entire organelle, separating it from the rest of the cytoplasm. Okay, it has its own nuclear envelope, and it has a nucleoplasm within, similar to the composition of the cytosol, okay, that we've discussed a while ago. So the nucleolus is a discrete, densely stained structure found in the nucleus. So this one. So I recommend that you watch this video. Still more about the nucleus. I will provide the link in the description below. And then visit this from micro.magnet. Still more about the nucleus. Again, links in the description below. And also, I recommend this lesson from Khan Academy. More discussion about the nucleus and the ribosomes. Links in the description below. So each of this is a cell, a squamous epithelial cell, and each densely stained structure, densely stained organelle is your nucleus. There. Onion cells, those are the nuclei found. So each cell, plant cell, each onion cell has a nucleus inside. That ends our video. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. Till next time, goodbye.